All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we're making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
Welcome inside the pen, everybody. My name is Austin Stantz. I'm your host for the evening. Behind the scenes, we have our producer for tonight, Tony Hollinsworth. Thank you, sir, for producing this show. So we're going to jump right in because we have a lot to cover tonight. We start out with some updates that we have. We have some injury updates going on I wanted to let you guys know about. So our first one here is going to be Gavin Lux of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the other day, he was coming around second base, and guy was running full out, and I just totally saw him hyperextend his knee. The whole thing, it kind of went backwards. All his weight went forwards. It didn't look good. So after I saw that happen, I knew there was an injury coming. But I think one of the first things that went through my mind was, why are you running so hard in spring training? This is, granted, don't get me wrong. This isn't a guy that is like Fernando Tatis Jr. or Trey Turner or something like that in a shortstop position where, if he's out of the lineup, you're losing 7 games per season or something like that, right? So it's not that detrimental, but now they have a hole at shortstop when, he was a decent defender. He had a, 971 fielding average. Guy averaged like, I don't know, maybe 14 homers in a season one year. So, he doesn't have a ton of power, doesn't have, a huge average or anything like that. I think we actually have the stats that we can bring up here for you in just a minute. So you see he has a 2.5 wins above replacement, a 276 average, and he had hit 6 home runs in 2022. So, those are things, like I said, you're not missing not having him in the lineup, but now you have to find someone that can play at a major league level and provide you some good defense as well. So I don't understand why he was running that hard, in spring training. Don't get me wrong. Once the season starts, wins and losses, they count. I understand it. But right now you're just really trying to stretch out your body, trying to get your body used to playing the game again at such a high level. And for him to try to stretch that ball to go to third base, I understand you want to score for your team. You want to make a good impression. And again, he is still kind of a young kid. So there is a chance, like I said, he's not the greatest shortstop out there. So he could be concerned that, somebody else could beat him out for his position. But to me, you've got it locked up. You've been on the team for multiple years. So, why risk it? Why risk the injury this early on? We're 6-7 games into spring training, and this happened a couple days ago. So you're only, maybe 4 games in at this point. So I didn't think it was the smartest move by him. And I wish him the fastest recovery, but he is going to be out all season with a torn ACL. So he does not have a chance of coming back in 2022. So Gavin Lux, we will see you he doesn't have a chance of returning in 2023. So Gavin Lux, we will see you in 2024 and wish you the best recovery. Moving on to our next player here, Joe Musgrove. Now, this is kind of a funny story. I did not see a ton of information on it. Basically, what I got out of it is this dude is in the weight room, working out, doing his stuff, and somehow fractured his big toe in the weight room. Again, now let me tell you, Joe Musgrove is a type of guy that you cannot afford to lose in the season. He is a number 1, number 2 starter, definitely top of your rotation kind of guy, where if he's out of the lineup, that's going to cost you some potential games if you don't have, a solid replacement. He's always competitive. He's, averaging, just under a 3 ERA. I think we actually have his stats here, which we'll have up in a minute for you. So there you go. In 2022, he threw a 2.93 ERA, went 10-7, played in 30 games, and pitched 181 innings. So, I mean, this is a guy that is a quality performer for your team. And for him to fracture his toe in the weight room, I almost said break room. That's where I usually am, chowing down. But no, he was in the weight room where he should be. And I feel like if you're in there, though, you got to be more aware. You got to be more aware of your surroundings, your body, everything like that. You're $1 million man. These guys are paying you to come out there and compete. Now, he's not out for the season or anything like that. I have it down here. He'll be out 4 to 8 weeks. So with that being said, he's going to be looking at coming back at the start of the season, but now you've pretty much missed your entire spring training. So missing your entire spring training, now you really, you're short on innings to start the season. It hurts your team. Those games at the very beginning of the season might count against you if you lose them after we get down into, August, September, October, right? So, I mean, obviously San Diego Padres are an October team. No doubt they're going to be in the playoffs, but we have to understand that there are wins and there are losses, and losses count against you no matter what. It's a game of inches. Baseball is a game of inches. So, if you can get that run scored and you can get the win, and a team has one more win than you and, in your division, then, I mean, that game counts, and that could count against you from from being a winner of your division to a wild card team. That's where that could take you. So, I just felt like that, that was kind of, just being unaware of his surroundings. Who knows what happened? I wasn't in the weight room, so I can't say, hey, it was your fault, but, tough to see a guy go out because he fractured his toe in the weight room. All right, so our next player on this list, we have a couple more injuries to cover. Tyler Glasnow of the Tampa Bay Rays. He is out with an oblique strain for 6 to 8 weeks. So this guy, again, now he actually pitched in a spring training game, and he looked really good. Again, this is a guy that you cannot afford to lose. Glasnow is always a guy that's a middle of your rotation type of guy, and outperforms almost, every batter that's up against him. He's got a really good fastball, really good breaking ball, and has really good command of that fastball. So, with that higher velocity and being able to throw that high fastball over guys, especially now when you have the shift band on, somebody who comes in his place might not have the best accuracy or might not have as good accuracy as he does. And that ball is millimeters over the plate. And now, like I said, baseball's a game of inches. That ground ball is now a home run because you don't have Glasnow in the rotation. So, missing out on guys like this can cost you games. And, I hate to see that happen. And oblique strains are very frequent in pitchers and batters. Obviously, pitching, it's high stress, it's repetitive. So clearly, there's definitely room for injuries there. But what I'm glad about is that it's just an oblique strain. We will see him in the season. He will be competitive. But again, this 6 to 8 weeks is now going to take your spring training away, where you are now your spring training is now essentially the start of the season. So you're limited on innings. You're limited on pitches. You don't want to overexert yourself, your first 5 starts. So to me, it's, it's tough to see these guys go down early. I don't know what could have avoided that. Maybe more stretching, maybe going through, taking a little bit better care of your body in the off season. I'm not sure, but again, it's tough to see these guys go down when they're such high competitors and they're very valuable to the team. It's hard to watch that. So Glasnow, we look forward to seeing you here in a couple months and competing at a high level. Our next player on this list is Seiya Suzuki. He is injured as well for the Chicago Cubs. And for me, this is a big bummer. I mean, this dude came into spring training just absolutely jacked. This picture that's up there is from last season, and dude looks twice his size this year. So, it was definitely a bummer to see him, get bumped out right away. He is also out with an oblique strain. That's why I say, again, they're very common amongst pitchers and batters. High stress, high repetition. You're pitching, over and over again. You're swinging that bat over and over again. These are very common injuries. It's not a tear. It's just a strain. So, again, he's also looking 6 to 8 weeks. So we'll see him in a couple of months. But that is a big bat in the lineup. It really is. The guy came in very hot last year when he came in from Japan and started with the Cubs. It looked like he was going to be on a special run, and then he kind of slowed down. I'm assuming pitchers made different adjustments. They watched film, things like that. So, I'm excited, though, because I want to see the adjustments that he made, and this really kind of took that out for me this spring training. Again, it is tough to see guys go out like this because really they're just getting their bodies ready. They're trying to get command of their fastballs. They're just trying to, get a good eye on the ball, trying to see it well. And so, spring training injuries are always the worst, right? Because, they're just trying to get started. A season injury, hey, you're getting paid to compete at a high level. If you get injured because you overexerted yourself or you went all out, you did what was expected of you. That was, the part of the risk that you take when you sign that, $25 million a year contract, right? You're willing to give up your body to go catch that ball. You're willing to, strain your body to do this repetitively every day. So it's a 162 game season. I cannot wait to see all of these guys get back in the lineup. Again, Gavin Lux, man, I wish you the best. Hope you make a full-on recovery and look forward to seeing you. We're going to move on now to our next segment. That's all the injuries that I have for you. So thank goodness we can kind of put that to rest. So our next segment, we have the pitch clock issue again. Now, the pitch clock is not necessarily – we're not talking about the time of it or anything like this. So actually what I've heard and read was that fans are very upset with the view of the pitch clock. So the pitch clock was in view of the TV, right? So fans are watching it at home. Again, if you're at the ballpark, you're probably not seeing it. If you're behind home plate or on the sides, stuff like that, you might be able to see it on the digital board and whatnot. But that's just it's part of the game now. And for me, when fans were saying that they were getting kind of upset by it, I was like, well, don't you want to know when it's getting down? If an umpire says, hey, I want to call that time, and it's like, well, what if he really was done in 8 seconds? And now I guess the big other question for me here is that going to be a challengeable play? Our coach is going to be able to challenge that. I don't know. Supposedly the, umpires are wearing buzzers. So when it gets down to a certain point, it starts buzzing. The umpire knows, hey, do this, do that. And I mean, that's all cool and whatever. But, from a fan's point of view, when they said that they were upset not being able to see it, I kind of didn't understand that because I'm like, in basketball, when the shot clock's going down, you want to see that shot clock to see if he got the shot off in time, right? If a pitcher is pitching and it's an opposing team and you're rooting for the other team, I want to see that pitch clock. I want to know if he got that pitch off in time. So to hear that a majority of the fans were upset by that, what am I going to do? If they decide to change it, they decide to change it. And that's exactly what MLB decided to do. They listened to the fans and they said, okay, well, just so you know, this is just spring training. Our camera locations are different during spring training games. Once we get to regular season games, the games at the stadium are filmed off of their center field camera. And according to MLB, the pitch clock will not be in the point of view from the center field camera, which is your main point of view while you're watching the game. So, fans, they were upset by that. They were heard. MLB took care of that for you. So hope that definitely makes you watch a little bit more baseball. And like I said, again, me personally, I want to see it. So whether they put a little square in the corner of the TV to show the pitch clock, when it gets down below 5 seconds, I think they need to do something. But I guess we'll see how that goes when the regular season gets started. Moving on to our next segment, we have our spring training games that we're going to cover. So our spring training games, we have quite a few of them. Like I said, we're about 8 games in. We got 30 teams, so there's been a lot of games already. And one of the games I wanted to cover with you guys was the Milwaukee Brewers and Texas Rangers. So Brewers won 7-4, and Christian Yelich hit a solo home run, which in my opinion was really good to see, because I got a crazy stat here for you guys. And to me, it's absurdly shocking. Christian Yelich, right? It's a name that you feel like maybe you haven't heard a lot of the past couple of years, and you're probably right. You are right, and I'll tell you why here in just one second. So, in 2019, Christian Yelich hit 44 home runs, right? Had over 100 RBIs. In 2018, he hit 36 home runs. So that's 2018, 2019. He's got over 35 home runs both seasons, right? Well, the last 3 seasons combined, now take into consideration that the 2020 season was reduced to, I think, like 65 games or something like that because of COVID-19. So with that being said, the combined 3 seasons, he hit 35 home runs. That's added up all together. He had 35 home runs in 3 seasons. So this dude went from jacking out, almost 45 homers, 35 homers a season to now averaging like 10, 11, 12 home runs a season. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's an injury that he's not recovered from. I don't know. I mean, when the Brewers got him from Miami, this dude, he's under contract now because he signed a contract extension after the 2020 season, after the 2019 season in 2020, because he hit that 44 homers and over 100 RBIs. So they figured, hey, consecutive seasons of this, this guy's the real deal, right? And then boom, now he's only played in averaging the last 2 seasons. He's averaging like 115 games a season. So he's, out, almost 50 games per season at this point because of injuries and stuff like that. His average has also suffered. So it's not like he just lost his power. He's also, kind of lost his contact. Maybe it's the shift. Maybe, who knows? Obviously, we're going to see some impact in the shift band this year. So maybe his average will go back up. But, I mean, for me, like I said, something happened there that was significant, whether it was an injury, whether it's mental, whether it's, mechanic-wise, and he has to fix his mechanics. I'm not sure what it is. But what I will tell you is that his average dropped from 288. That was from 2013 to 2019. He averaged a 288 average. And there was multiple seasons in there that he broke 300, was hitting 301, 305, stuff like that. So from 13 to 19, across that 6 years, he was averaging 288. Since then, since 2019, he is averaging either 250 or below. So again, something happened there, whether it's injury or mechanic issue. When I saw him hit this home run, I mean, dude jacked it out of the park. So I was really happy to see him hit it out this early on. I hope maybe he made some mechanic adjustments or fully recovered from this injury. I definitely want to see this guy succeed because when, let's be honest too, when you look at Christian Yelich, he does not look like a guy who's going to jack out, almost 50 homers a season. But he did. He's only 30 years old now. So I want to see, he's still in that prime area, where he's still probably got at least 3 years left or so in his prime. And I want to see him make those count. I want to see, before he goes on a decline, I want to see, at least 2 more 30-plus homer seasons and see this guy contribute to the ball club. Because, I mean, let's be honest. And that's me saying that, who's a Cubs fan, right? So the Milwaukee Brewers are in my division. I want to see Christian Yelich play. I mean, the dude was just absolutely built on a different level in 2018 and 2019. And if he can get back to that level of performance, guys in the National League are going to need to watch out. So the next game I got on here for you guys is the Rockies. The Rockies, they lost yesterday. I mean, they won yesterday and lost today. So the good news about that is that, yesterday, Chris Bryant hit an absolute moonshot. This dude, when I saw that ball leave the bat, like, I don't even think the camera could go up high enough to get the camera lens on the ball because, I mean, it was just a towering shot. And it was good for me to see that because if you remember last year, he signed his 7-year, $182 million contract. And he only played like 45, 47 games, something like that. And so when I saw that, I was like, dude, I mean, that sucks to see him go out in the season so early. And so to see him crack one out this early, it was, I don't think it was his debut yesterday, but it was good to see him in the lineup. It was good to see him swinging a hot bat. He was not in the lineup today, so he did not contribute to that loss. Maybe they would have won if they had him in the lineup. And again, the fact that he wasn't in the lineup, I don't know if that's cause for concern or not. I sure hope it isn't. Hopefully he's back in the squad tomorrow. Maybe they were on a split squad tomorrow. So I'll keep on the lookout for that and keep you guys updated on that. But speaking of Chris Bryant, though, guy needs to produce. You signed a 7-year, $180 plus million contract, right? You only play 40-something games. That is a big fear factor for the Colorado Rockies. And let's be honest, too. The Colorado Rockies always seem like a team that are like, they're like right there to a wild card spot, right? But they never break it over the hump. So I really want to see the Colorado Rockies have a little bit more success this year. I still think they need to add a little bit more pitching. I would like to see them add some different bats. I mean, guys are starting to get older. Charlie Blackmon is a little bit older. Cargo, he's out. He's been out for a while now. But, Troy Tulowitzki, he's gone. So the Rockies aren't what they used to be. And I want to see them get back to a competitive team, see them get back into the playoffs because these last few runs for them have just been absolutely rough. And I think that Chris Bryant is going – well, actually, I don't think. I know Chris Bryant is going to need to be a huge piece of that offense if they're going to have any success whatsoever. So Chris Bryant needs to produce, and then maybe if they're at, a winning record and on a successful point, getting close to that All-Star break, maybe the GM and the owner will want to make some moves. They'll get together and say, hey, we're here. We have an opportunity. See what you got in the farm system coming up. See if they're, this spring training, we'll keep an eye on them and see if they're going to, produce at a high level for you. But if not, I mean, take a chance. I mean, again, you guys missed out on spring training. Colorado Rockies was one of those teams that, almost made my list as my losers last episode when we were going over that. They definitely would have been an honorable mention on the losers list if I had one. So, I want to see them have a little bit more success. So I would definitely like to see that. Moving on to our next one, we have the Red Sox. The Red Sox put up some big numbers against the Phillies today. They won 15-3. Now, again, this is spring training, so usually these numbers, once the season starts, these numbers mean absolutely nothing, right? So we want what spring training is for is so we can actually evaluate, the AAA guys, AA guys, the guys who got invites to spring training, guys are fighting for roster spots. That's what this is for. But let me tell you, when you see a 15-3 game, there's a lot of offense in that game, and it is fun to watch. And speaking of offense, Kristen Arroyo absolutely lit it up. He hit 2 home runs, one of those home runs being a grand slam. So guy had 5 RBIs and 2 homers in the game. I think he's going to be a big contributor for the Red Sox this year. And they have a ton of guys to compete for different positions. So it's going to be really, really fun to see who's going to beat out who. And obviously right here on the Call to the Pen, we will keep you updated if there's any major changes on that. If a prospect makes the team, we'll definitely keep you updated on that. And not for nothing, the Phillies, they only had 3 runs, but Cody Clemens hit another home run today. That's 2 in 3 days. So Cody Clemens might be getting a little hot here for the Phillies and might get himself a roster spot. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on to our next Next team is the Yankees. The Yankees won 9-1 against the Pirates. The reason why I have this update on there is because, while it might not be special because of spring training, to me it was special because you have so many different pitchers coming out of the bullpen and they all had success, right? So the Yankees had a no-hitter going into the bottom of the ninth inning. And no, the one pitcher did not stay in. So it would have been a combined no-hitter. It got broken up in the bottom of the ninth, and the Yankees went on to win 9-1. What I want to cover with this, though, is that to have a combined no-hitter this early in the spring for the Yankees, and let's be honest too, obviously the Pirates aren't the greatest club, out of the 30 that we have, but they're the O'Neal Cruz, for example. Guy is a monster, guy can hit. They have guys on that team that can just absolutely rake. And so when you have, a couple of your major league guys coming out, getting their work in, and then you have a couple, AAA guys who are trying to earn a rotation spot, a bullpen spot, and everybody is just pitching absolutely lights out. That means that there's going to be some hard decisions for the Yankees because, they have really good pitching depth in their rotation. They had, obviously their bullpen could use some work. So that's a good sign for them. And they're going to have some decisions to make on who's going to come up and who's going to fill those spots that they need. And I think the Yankees are definitely going to be a team to watch this year in terms of arms for sure. I think that they have an absolute monster of a rotation. So can't wait to see that. Again, I do think the Yankees are one bat and one pitcher away from the World Series. And by pitcher, I mean relief pitcher. They need someone substantial that they can rely on. I definitely, Aroldis Chapman, obviously not that guy anymore. Totally lost his ability to command the fastball. And so he's just not that guy for him anymore. And, I want to see them bring in someone substantial or find someone in their farm system that they have that can fill that role and help them win games, because I feel like that was always their issue, is losing late games. They have the offense, no doubt about it, right? So let's find somebody, or let's hope they find somebody to lock that down for you Yankee fans and get you in the playoffs and maybe get you a ring here soon. Moving on to the next one. We have the Dodgers versus the Diamondbacks. So the reason why I have them on here is they had some really productive guys the last 2 days. Freddie Freeman homered today, and let's talk about Freddie Freeman for a second. Freddie Freeman is probably one of the most underrated players in the game, right? As a first baseman. But then the guy, when he was with Atlanta, went over and played third base for a few games. So, I mean, the guy is just extremely talented. He's always giving you, 25, 30 homers, 100 RBIs, 80 RBIs. He's always contributing. And good defender, great defender, and makes great plays. He's a smart player. He's a smart base runner, and obviously, he, as the years continue, he's getting older. But still, right now, he is probably one of the most underrated players. And I think that's always been because he's just been surrounded by ball clubs that have really great talent. And, when Atlanta was bad, Freddie Freeman was the star, right? He goes over here to the Dodgers. Man, you got Mookie Betts, you have Trey Turner, you have, Clayton Kershaw is also a big name, even though he's not what he used to be. You had the whole Trevor Bauer incident that kind of took away, from his, ability to entertain because everyone was so caught up in everything else. So he's surrounded by so much potential and talent there that, it gets kind of lost of the player that he is. And it shouldn't get lost because he is a huge contributing piece for them. And, to see his back getting hot right now, that was fun to see. I'm glad Freddie's he's a fun guy. He's a nice guy. Can't wait to see him have a good season. So I was happy to see that. Mookie Betts, he homered, and Jason Hayward homered yesterday. Now, this is interesting because Jason Hayward is obviously out of that contract from Chicago. Thank God. I mean, obviously they said that, he contributed in that rain delay that helped the Cubs win the World Series. I have all the 2016, newspapers laminated and stuff like that here behind me. You can see that. That World Series to me meant everything. So if he contributed to that rain delay and gave his speech, whatever. Okay, cool. It was 108 years, and I got to see it in my lifetime. My father-in-law got to see it in his lifetime before he passed away. So that's all I can ask for, right? So it's interesting because Jason Hayward seems to be getting a little bit hot. Guy made already some incredible plays in the center field here in spring training. So, and they've got a lot of options for center field. So to see if he's going to make a starting spot is interesting. If he gets his bat going again and, fits it, because the defense obviously is just, no brainer. Guys like, feels like he's like a 15-time Gold Glove winner. I mean, every year he is such a good defender. But that doesn't really help me when you come up to the plate with bases loaded or, second and third, 2 outs, and you cannot get runs in. So if you can't get those runs in, and you can't contribute in an offensive way, then defensively, I mean, to me, that's kind of like a Kevin Kiermaier situation. Tampa Bay always held on to Kevin Kiermaier for a long time because of how good of a defender he was, but he wasn't really that great offensively. Kevin Kiermaier has one of the best arms in the MLB, but probably also one of the worst bats in the MLB, so, and I say worst bats as in worst bats in a starting role. Obviously I would probably take Kevin Kiermaier over, the last man on the bench, because of his defense. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand why he did it, but what I'm saying here is that the Dodgers have a ton of other options for center field. So it's interesting now to see, if his bat comes alive and he makes a starting spot, hey, good for you, man. You're the starting center fielder, especially, they got rid of Cody Bellinger, stuff like that. It seems like we swapped, one bad guy for another. We got Cody Bellinger here in Chicago. They got Jason Hayward. So I hope his bat starts up again. I mean, the guy spent his whole time here in Chicago and just got absolutely ridiculed because of his offense. So if he has better luck in Los Angeles, then good for you, buddy. I definitely hope it happens and works out for you. Moving on to our next subject here. I think that's all the spring training games I got for you. I'm just looking through my papers here. So yes, that's all I got. We're moving on next to our next segment, which is Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani. Oh man. That guy is a monster. As you can see at the bottom of the screen here, Shohei is ready for showtime. So Shohei debuted on Tuesday with his spring training debut. He pitched 2 1/3, 2 strikeouts, and fastball was great. His motion looked great. He seemed loose. His velocity was high. He had great command. His breaking balls were moving really well. I mean, his splitter was just absolute nasty, diving into the dirt. So I want to see, Shohei this season. I mean, every year they say that it's like Babe Ruth, there he is there. God, man, he's got a huge stride, but that guy has just the biggest arsenal of pitches, and so when you combine that and he can come up to the plate and hit 30, 40 homers, that's insane. That is Babe Ruth caliber, right? So it's always fun to watch him. He is actually headed to Japan for the World Baseball Classic. So that's where he went after his debut. He's probably already there and joined them at this point. I can't wait to watch the World Baseball Classic. And just so you baseball fans know, we definitely will have a full episode dedicated just to the World Baseball Classic. We will cover those games. We'll cover the players. We'll cover the performance and stuff like that. So there are some really stacked teams in the World Baseball Classic this year. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Moving on to our next one here. We have the Pirates and Orioles. So this was just totally crazy. The Pirates and the Orioles ended up finishing their game without an umpire. theoretically, right? So you can see there he's pitching. There's no umpire in the background. That's because the umpires actually walked off the mound because technically the Pirates had already won in the top of the inning, and it was 7-4, but supposedly they wanted to get some extra work in. And talk about, like, sandlot type of baseball, right? Like, that is a fun way when, you're a huge competitive player. The umps, walk off the mound. It feels like sandlot baseball. So for those of you who just love that movie, I mean, that game at the end there just gave me full sandlot vibes here in spring training. It was fun to see those guys kind of loosen up and compete quite a bit, just, like kids. So that was fun. That was baseball at its finest right there. So that was good. So our next one that we move on to, this is probably the one that I'm most excited for. So we had an altercation, if you will, with the St. Louis manager and the umpire. So you see at the bottom of your screen there, it was CB Bucknor and Oil Marmol of the St. Louis Cardinals, who's the head coach there. So this picture is from last season, and supposedly Marmol told Bucknor that his time in the MLB was coming to an end, and Bucknor said, "Dude, you just got to the MLB. Get out of my face." And I guess Bucknor was still very upset by this. He took it into 2023. I don't know why. Guys say things in heated moments and stuff like that. Don't hold a grudge. It's a baseball game. It's a manager. I mean, he's got to fire his team up and do what he's supposed to do. Bad call or not, managers argue for their team. They're defending their team. So would I take offense to it next season? No. I mean, we'll deal with the next argument when it comes, right? So I have it here on Saturday. It was a Saturday game. Marmol went out, and I guess one of his things is he always likes to go out and shake all the umpires' hands and stuff like that. He says that, that's how he was raised and stuff like that. And if that is, hey, good for you, man. No problem. But he goes out and he shakes all the umpires' hands, and he comes around to Bucknor, and Bucknor doesn't shake his hand. So he just absolutely refused. And Marmol goes, tries to say something and sticks his hand out a little bit further, and dude just rejects him. And so after the game, Marmol had a press conference, and they asked him about, what he thought. And I have a quote for you. So, quote, "I don't think he's good at his job, and it shows a lack of class as a man," end quote. Whoa. I mean, he called him out. He called him out so hard, called out his manhood, called out, his class, called him out as an umpire. That was huge. And then so on Monday, he has Bucknor again as an umpire. And he actually goes out and they shake hands this time. So it's like, oh, all this is settled. I don't think that's settled. I mean, I think that maybe the Umpires Association or whatever told him, hey, you can't do that. You got to shake his hand. You have to be this. But I don't think Bucknor let this go by any means. I think that I think there's going to be some altercations maybe later in the season. Who knows? I don't know. Buckner's been in the league since 1998 or 1996, something like that. So he's been around quite a while. And then obviously there's situations with Angel Hernandez and umpires and all that stuff. And, we can cover that another time. But Bucknor and Marmol, man, I feel like that it's going to be a boxing match between those guys, especially if he makes a call that, the St. Louis coach doesn't agree with. It might be, I've never seen, a real altercation between pushing and shoving between umpire and manager. But geez, I mean, it seemed like if a guy called me out like that, I first of all would have something to say back. I'm not just going to let him call me out as a man and then not say anything about it. But the fact that he called him out like that and then just went and shook his hand and was like, okay, it's done, whatever. It's like, man, I would have just shook his hand at the beginning, and never even had an issue. He never would have had to call me out like that. But I think I think that the coach might have done him a little dirty by calling him out that way. Again, I'm going to read this quote one more time just because it's so crazy. Quote, I don't think he's good at his job, and it shows a lack of class as a man, end quote. I mean, I think I might make that quote my screensaver, just because that's awesome. I love it. And he's a younger guy too. He was the bench coach for St. Louis, Marmol, and ended up he was the bench coach in 2017, I believe, and ended up becoming the head coach in 2019 or 2020, something like that. But I think he's only like 36 years old. So guy's a young coach. He's got a lot of time left in the league. Obviously having success. He had some MVPs on his team, and, hopefully they don't do too well, because I would like the Cubs to, kind of fight for the division this year. But again, wish them all the best of success. I'd be careful, though, about calling people out like that. I don't know how MLB might react to that. I don't know. But, it was a heated thing and words were said. And I just think that, maybe he took it a little too far. Who knows? But that's pretty much all I have for you guys tonight. That's kind of all the talking points that I had for you. I know next week I will have a guest on the show, so we will have that to look forward to. We're going to be doing kind of a cross-promotion thing here where we get him on the show and introduce him, and then also, kind of hear a little bit about his podcast, and then, talk a lot of baseball. So I promise I won't take too much time away so we don't miss out on any baseball, but we will definitely have I'll keep track of the spring training games as always. I'll keep track of injury updates. If any trades or anything like that happens, immediately it'll be on the show. You can see on Facebook that, I will always share things to the ASAP network. So if I share something baseball related on there, just hit that network, follow the network so you can see all of my updates and stuff like that. You can catch us live on Facebook and YouTube. And we just want to see more of you guys watch the show and get you guys some more information about baseball and just have a great year. We're going to be I'm going to cover from spring training all the way to the World Series. So, again, we have a great producer behind the scenes, Tony. He's awesome. I appreciate what he does for us. So it's just great to have such a good producer behind us. Our logo was made by Sam. I don't have his last name in front of me at the moment, but Sam, I just want to say thank you for making such a great logo for us. That is going to be our permanent logo. So I don't know if Tony can pull it up or not, but if he can, and give it to you guys before we head out here. But I definitely wanted to tell you guys again, if you haven't watched the first episode yet, go back, watch that, and get caught up and move on for episode 3, which will air on Thursday at 8 p.m. Thank you again to all you guys who watched the show, and I look forward to giving you guys some more baseball information. Thanks for coming inside the pen. I'm your host, Austin Stance. Behind the scenes, we have Tony Hollinsworth. Good night.
Whole sports, all plays. Yeah. Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports, all plays.